Apple are exploring using Google Gemini AI to power revamped Siri. So Apple have basically dropped the ball. And lots of Apple apologists, and I'm one of them. I love Apple. I'm on a Apple MacBook Pro. I've got an Apple iPhone here. There's an Apple iPad over there, fully Apple-pilled. A lot of people who are pro-Apple have been saying, oh no, it's all right. Apple are just waiting until the right moment. This is what they do. This is pure Apple. They will wait until the moment is right for them to strike, and then they'll take over with their artificial intelligence. I don't think that's happening. I think they've dropped the ball hard. Good morning. I'm coming to you from lovely Sweden. I'm in specifically, if there's any Swedish people on call or listening to this later, I'm going to butcher this, Kungsholmen, Kingsholm, maybe? Kingsholmen, the island to the west of the old town. So I'm going to be exploring Stockholm later today. But right now, I'm doing the live show, and yeah, great to have you all with me. This is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the AI news and updates of the day, as per usual, and also answering questions coming in from the audience on TikTok. And I'm seeing a bunch of people starting to appear. Hello, Amclusent. I don't know if I'm going to get more Swedish people coming onto the live because I'm currently in Sweden and TikTok knows that. If so, hey and tax are my only Swedish words. Taxamisek? I don't know. I'm going to learn some later today, because currently I have no Swedish at all. Let's get into it. So, got a few things today. Got Elon Musk, maybe spouting nonsense, maybe talking about the future of artificial intelligence. Who knows? It's difficult to tell with him. So, a couple of things he's been going on about beating Google and about creating a new Microsoft. So, he's talking a big game at the moment. I've also got some news about Apple potentially exploring AI integration with Google. So I think Apple may have realized that they've fallen so far behind in this game that it's time to work with another partner. So there's talk about putting Gemini into Siri and finally making Siri actually useful. So we're going to look at that rumor. Then I'm going to talk about AI agents in particular. The reason for this is that just about an hour ago on the BBC, there was an article about how to stop AI agents going rogue. And it's a fine article, but I'm going to talk about what exactly an agent is and how you would get started if you want to build agents. And then a couple of other tactical posts as well. So one thing that I want to start doing is giving you the news, but also going through uses of artificial intelligence. So giving you some ideas about how you can use AI more in your day-to-day. So I'm going to be experimenting a bit with that format today. So yes, I'm abroad, I'm in Sweden, and we're going to be trying a new format, new setup, trying lots of new things. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Don't try new things at the same time. Let's hop into the news, and we're going to start with our favorite for news because he keeps it very interesting, Elon Musk. So he's come out of a couple of things in the last couple of days. One is he's talking about how he's going to destroy Google. So XAI will soon be far beyond any company besides Google and then significantly exceed Google. This is the interesting part though, because that's just Elon Musk spouting off. Companies in China will be the toughest competition because they have much more electricity than America and are super strong at building hardware. I think this is a really interesting admission, basically saying his competitors are no longer in America, his competitors are in China. And I agree here. China is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to artificial intelligence and in terms of energy production, which is what you need if you need to continue training models and you need to train them cost effectively. China is just absolutely kicking ass because they are pushing really hard into renewables in a way that the rest of the Western world is not doing. I used to live in Beijing, and I lived there about 10 years ago or so. And even then, they just decided, okay, we are going to electrify cars. We're going to make sure people are driving electric cars. All our buses are going to be electric. We're going to push on this. And even 10 years ago, as soon as they make a decision, it happens. And suddenly all the buses were replaced. And it's just like everything is electric now. And you've probably seen with the high-speed rails, the Gautier in China, the same thing. While in the UK, we kind of muss and fuss about building the HS2, which is one high-speed rail. China in that same time has built thousands and thousands of kilometers of rail. So when they make a decision, they do it and they get it done very efficiently. The other one that I really like is the Great Green Wall of China. It's the largest reforestation and growing of trees ever. ever attempted, and nobody's ever heard of it in the West. People don't hear about the Great Green Wall of China. But again, it's just one of these projects where China's, okay, we need more trees. Cool, we're going to grow the most amount of trees ever. And they've reforested, just let me look it up because it is mad. Great Green Wall of China. I highly recommend looking this up as well. It began in 1978 and they have grown, let me see how many trees, it's something ridiculous. So it's a barrier that is 5,000 kilometers long, that's 3,000 kilometers, and 1,500 kilometers wide, or 900 miles. And it's 88 million acres of forest. So while we all kind of fuss around in the West with like, oh, we're going to grow a couple of new trees, China's just covered a whole area between China and the Gobi Desert with trees. They just get on with these things. So I think Musk is recognizing this, that because the full force of China, the Chinese government, the Chinese tech industry are getting in behind artificial intelligence, this is the risk now. It is not other American companies. He's saying that, no, this is going to be about beating China. And really, artificial intelligence is a two-horse race. It is America and it is China, and that's it. I'm sorry, I'm in the EU right now, Sweden, and sorry, Sweden. So I think he's 100% right here. I don't know why he's talking about destroying Google and beating every other company in the US, but I think the fact that he's then gone and say our real competitors are China is very prescient. That is the truth here. The other thing he spouted off about, this was a few days ago, was he's making a company called Macro Hard. So he's flipped Microsoft into Macro Hard. So join XAI to help build a purely AI software company called Macro Hard. It's a tongue-in-cheek name, but the project is very real, he says. We're not quite sure if it is. In principle, given that software companies like Microsoft do not themselves manufacture any physical hardware, it should be possible to simulate them all using AI. So these two tweets are connected. As he points out, China are super strong at building hardware. Most of the electronics that we buy now are built in China. Nvidia are probably the only very important exception to this, because they're building GPUs, which are used to train artificial intelligences, but China is trying to catch up. Huawei in particular is on the mission to beat Nvidia at this particular game. And pretty much any other hardware is dominated by China. And that's why China in particular is doing so well in robotics, because they build and they manufacture. And they're going to be the ones who are going to be able to scale robotics and actually make them affordable. Because if we're buying European or British, same thing, or American robots, they're going to be very expensive. So Elon Musk is also talking about this Macro Hard. And it's this idea of replicating a company, but fully in software inside artificial intelligence, which is a very cool kind of sci-fi idea, is like replicating all of the physical infrastructure, all of the staff members, etc., inside AI. So simulating a company, but having the same outputs, which is probably where we're going. It will be artificial intelligences communicating with other artificial intelligences within more closed ecosystems with less connection to the outside world. This leads into the question of agents, which I'm going to talk about later in the live, based on a BBC article. But it's just an interesting idea, this idea of taking an existing company and replicating it fully within AI. Would it have the same outputs? Would it have the same ability to compete in the world? I don't know. But we're going to be seeing more and more of this, I think, moving forward. Just going to switch over to some questions. Again, guys, I'm in Sweden right now. And so if the live is choppy, I apologize for that. It should be okay, I'm hoping. I'm still doing the 4K stream over on YouTube, and so far so good, but we'll see. How can I make 4.0 the default model in new projects? That's a good question. So there is a model selector, but you just want it to be the default. I don't think it will be by absolute default. It will go to 5. Oh, that's weird. I just started a new project and the project name is Sweden Trip. Okay, let's put that in as test. That must be because I asked it about stuff, right? It's not listening to me. Yeah, so I just did it. I created a new project and it defaulted to the model that I already had selected in ChatGPT, which for me was GPT-5 Thinking Mini. So I assume, let's try this. Let me put it into 4.0 and then start a new project. my assumption, once this project creates, oh no, it defaulted to GPT-5. So I don't think you can. I think it's always going to default to GPT-5, which is their cutting edge, their leading edge model right now. However, once you've created the project, you can just click on the drop down, go to legacy models and switch into 4.0, and that will be the new model within your project. So I don't think you can set it a default. To be fair, I don't think you can set a GPT-5 default either. It would just default to auto. But to change it, go to legacy GPT 4.0. You will only see the legacy model if you are on a paid plan. If you're on a free plan, there won't be access to legacy models. Just FYI, if that is a case for you. Callum says, been following for a while, love the content. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Can AI be used to pre-test culture and policies by govs? Ooh. Yeah, so there are different forms of AI. We've had AI for pretty much as long as we've had computers. The idea of AI was invented very quickly afterwards. And we have had, for at least the last couple of decades, machine learning. Machine learning is, I guess, a method, a system of tools that we use, and we've built our new AIs using them, but we've been using machine learning for a long time. And one of the other things that we built out of machine learning is predictive AI. And predictive AI is different to generative AI, but it's probably more useful in a case like this, where we could give a predictive AI a bunch of information and ask it to run simulations. So this kind of artificial intelligence has been used in scientific research, for example, for years, absolutely years and years. What we have now, in the last couple of years, it's become popular and it's become synonymous with AI, is generative AI, which is generally, but not always, based on large language models and diffusion models. So ChatGPT and Midjourney, for example, or Stable Diffusion. But there are other forms of AI. For this particular case, pre-testing culture and policy, it might be a predictive AI which would be better at this job, because this is more of a research and simulation task. So Gen AI, like ChatGPT, is not necessarily the right tool for this job. What I would do is I would work out what it is you want to test and go and ask ChatGPT what the best methodology for doing that would be. And it's not necessarily going to be using ChatGPT, but ChatGPT can help guide you towards how you would test this. My fear, if you did it with generative AI, would be it would just fill in the gaps, and it's not going to run simulations for you. It's going to come out with a very reasonable, a very feasible answer, but it's not necessarily going to be rigorous. Whereas if you use a predictive AI and you run multiple simulations, you'll be able to get a full gamut of results, and that's going to allow you to actually do proper research. So yes, I think AI can be used to pre-test policies, but not necessarily generative AIs like ChatGPT. This proviso, this is not my field of speciality. There are much smarter people than me who would know how to do this, but I would start by asking ChatGPT, hey, I want to run these tests. How would I do that? And it's going to be about statistics and research rather than just giving it to ChatGPT, because ChatGPT will tend to tell you what you want to hear. Thoughts on Cruso in terms of the energy issue? I don't know what that is, so I have no thoughts. Cruso AI? Oh, it's a factory. Development of energy first AI factories. What's an energy first AI factory? Oh, here we go. Cruso expands partnership at North for sustainable AI cloud growth. Okay, I don't know enough about it to comment on it, I'm afraid. AI data center startup Cruso in talks for $10 billion valuation, set to raise $1 billion equity and debt in the deal. Okay, so it's new. I would say, without knowing anything about this, we need to see what they build, first and foremost. But if they can do it with better energy efficiency or make it neutral in some way, fantastic. But I'd want to see what their capabilities are and if they can actually build this thing, because there's a lot of talk in the AI industry and it allows you to raise billions of dollars, but we need to see the results of it. And to give Elon Musk his due, he's very good at building data centers extremely fast. So the Colossus data center, for example, allowed them to catch up and build a frontier model in 2 years, which is amazing. He just threw money at it. And because of the way we are currently scaling large language models, it's all about just throwing more data and more GPUs at it and not really worrying that much about the algorithms or the efficiency, because we realized, oh, if we just throw more at it, it gets better. So let's just keep doing that. So he got away with it for now. But if we start to plateau and we're going to need to be smarter with how we train these models, that's not going to work moving forward. which will actually kick the bottom out from underneath these data center businesses, because one of the assumptions is we're going to keep needing bigger and bigger and bigger data centers. If we don't, because we work out how to do this more efficiently and it's not about just brute force, then yeah, companies like this are going to have a rough time moving forward, but it would be better for the planet. Jay, such a shame the UK is nowhere on the scene. Yeah, the artificial intelligence scene. Yep, we're not, unfortunately. So we had DeepMind, but DeepMind was purchased by Google back in, God, ages ago. When was it purchased? It was founded in 2010 by Demis Hassabis and then acquired in 2014 and merged with Google AI's Google Brain division to become Google DeepMind in April 2023. Okay, so they put them together. So it was DeepMind, really impressive company. It was purchased at the time for what people thought was a huge amount of money. $400 million. Okay, $400 million in January 2014. And everyone at the time was like, what? That's an obscene amount of money to spend on this lab who hasn't really put anything out. They've got no commercial, they haven't built anything and any products that are interesting or making money, sorry. So at the time, people were like, why on earth are Google buying this lab for $400 million? But pretty good deal because they got the talent from that, huge amounts of talent. If that lab was selling now, it would be countless billions, like a lot of money. Emin says, good morning, Kyle. How was the panel discussion talk? Do you mean in Sweden? I haven't done it yet. So what I'm actually here in Sweden for is to visit Lovable, the startup, apparently the fastest growing software startup ever, which is very impressive. They reached 100 million annual recurring revenue in 8 months, which is mad. I'm currently in Stockholm and I'm going to go and see them on Thursday, and I arrived here in Stockholm a little bit earlier in order to just have a holiday. But I'm still doing these lives, don't worry, and it all seems to be going okay. So I haven't gone to see them yet. I think I'm seeing them on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I need to check. I have an itinerary. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And for those of you who don't know what Lovable is, it's a vibe coding application. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's really cool. It allows you to basically build software using natural language in the same way that you talk to ChatGPT. You can build software. So you can say, hey, today I'd like to build a da-da-da-da-da, and it will go ahead and it will create that for you. And if you haven't tried it, it's magic. It's like the first time you use ChatGPT, that feeling of, holy wow, okay, how can I do this? It's that kind of feeling, but with making software. So I highly recommend playing around with it. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. Although if you want to sponsor me, Lovable, we should talk. I'm actually meeting their team in a few days' time, so let's see if I can get sponsored. And get these live sponsored, that'd be cool. Do you have your own platform or do you work together with one? What do you mean, an AI platform? I've trained local AIs, but for fun, because training an AI is just too cost and energy and time intensive, basically. So I've done it as a hobby project. But beyond that, no, I haven't built my own AI. I will build tools off the back of the APIs of other platforms. So you can use the OpenAI API, the Claude API, etc. And you can build products off the back. That's a good question. Something cool I saw from Ethan Mollick. You should be following him. He's over on Twitter and LinkedIn in particular, and he wrote a fantastic book called Co-Intelligence. There are very few books on AI I recommend because it moves so fast, but Co-Intelligence is one of them. But I just thought this was a really cool use of GPT-5 in particular, which you can build into your daily or your weekly workflow. So what Ethan Mollick does, one of the useful services he provides is he's always talking about what the new benchmarks are, what new models are out, what benchmarks they're scoring, and then he digs into the data a bit. But to do this, he needs to be aware of what's going on all the time. And I'm always impressed that he's like the first to break the news. He's always like on the cutting edge. This is how. So he says, a useful thing GPT-5 can do that wasn't previously possible before powerful AI is to monitor complex topics by asking it to give you scheduled reports. So as an example, he has a weekly report on reproducible benchmarked evidence of autonomous and recursive self-improvement in AI. So very specific. So every single week, he gets a scheduled report, and you can schedule tasks inside ChatGPT, and it sends it over to him. So his prompt is search the web for technical papers, blog posts, or model cards from Meta, OpenAI, DeepMind, XAI, or Anthropic that present reproducible benchmarked evidence of autonomous AI self-improvement or recursive self-improvement, and notify me if any are found. Always provide links. So yeah, once a week, his AI, his ChatGPT will go off, scour the web, look for any updates in that particular, very particular field, and then send him a report. And then he can use that to post and write about these topics. So if there is something that you need to keep on top of, could be AI, could be something in your business, could be anything at all, you can ask ChatGPT to provide this report. So it's like having a research assistant, but they're doing it on a regular basis, and they're going to send you this report. So I need to do this for my AI news because I do this every single morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a scheduled task, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to deliver this report to me every day so I can sit down, read it, and go through. Because at the moment I'm doing this manually, which is fine, but I could be more efficient. So I just wanted to flag this up as a really cool usage. And I'm sure there are things you do in your daily business where you could just have ChatGPT pull the information together for you on a daily or weekly basis, monthly maybe, and then you go through it. So I wanted to flag that up. Such a basic thing, but ChatGPT releases so many features, it's often hard for us to fully take advantage of them all. So it's a good reminder every once in a while, oh, ChatGPT can do this. Okay, that's cool. I can use it for this. So how long until university is not necessary? Whew, big question. I'm actually reading Salman Khan's book at the moment, which is, what's it called? This is the problem with reading books on Kindle because I'm not holding it physically. I forget what the name of the book is. Brave New Words. Oh, Brave New Words. I was reading that wrong. I was calling it Brave New Worlds before. Brave New Words. It's about how AI is going to revolutionize education, basically. And it's a very positive take. So Salman Khan, for those of you who are unfamiliar with him, he runs the Khan Academy. And it started with him providing personal tutoring to, I think, his niece or one of his cousins, because he worked in a hedge fund. He was good at computer science, at mathematics, and he had a niece who was struggling in mathematics. So he started to give her personal tutoring. So it was via text messages. I think he was shooting short videos, screen recordings, and sending them to her. As soon as his family, poor guy, his family found out that Salman Khan was giving free tutoring. So all of the cousins, all of the nephews and nieces suddenly were being sent to him to get this free tutoring. So he ended up teaching like 10 family members about mathematics and computer science and economics and finance, etc., to help them with their exams. And he realized, like, oh, not everybody has someone like me to help them with these topics. So maybe I could widen out on this. And he started to shoot YouTube videos, fantastic YouTube videos. I'm sure some of you have used them. And then he built out Khan Academy. In fact, Khan Academy he purchased because it was like available at the time and because it was specifically for his family initially. But now Khan Academy is an absolutely huge organization. I think they're funded by Bill Gates, and they've helped, I think it was 150 million or 200 million kids around the world with tutoring. And his style is fantastic. He's a very good educator, a very good teacher. So his book, Brave New Words, is all about how AI is coming into this sphere and how it's going to help, how it's going to hinder, how it's going to change things moving forward. And he was actually one of the first people to see GPT-4. He was called in by Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, and he was a bit hesitant. He was like, oh, I don't. From what he'd seen with GPT 3.5, he wasn't that impressed because Gen AI made mistakes. It would make things up, basically. So he wasn't very impressed, but he was called in. And he had a meeting with Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. They showed him GPT-4, and they showed him how it could answer AP biology, so advanced placement. It's like a higher level exam in American high schools. They showed him how it could just basically ace the test. And there's a description of him sitting there with them like, oh, like this feeling like, oh my God, like, here we go. So I think the really exciting thing about AI in education is that we all get a personal tutor. Previously, you either had to have a relative like Salman Khan, who was infinitely patient, and very self-sacrificing, or you had to be rich to purchase, or for your parents to hire a personal tutor. You had to have money, and that was just not, it is not an option for most people on earth. However, we now have AI tutors, so we can talk to somebody, ChatGPT, who has a knowledge of what we know, what we don't know, who is infinitely patient, who will sit and explain a topic to us 100 times until we get it, who can reformulate that explanation, who can help us through difficult topics. Everybody pretty much on Earth now has access to that level of assistance, and if they don't yet, they will very shortly. There are talks, like OpenAI apparently talking with Peter Kyle of the UK government about providing ChatGPT to everyone in the UK. And one of the big pushes on this is we want to make sure our kids have it. It's like, okay, I get that. If AI is used in this way, it is incredibly powerful. So I can code a bit, but I'm not a coder. I'm not a computer scientist. I didn't do that at university, so I'm self-taught. So I do vibe coding. I watch vibe coding, I tell it what to do and it will blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, I use AI to educate myself on what's going on. But that is a conscious choice. I have to specifically ask the AI, okay, what did you do there? And have it test me on concepts. That's because I want to continue to learn. At the same time though, AI will allow people who don't want to learn to not learn, because it can take the work from them. It can make lazy people really lazy, or it can make people who want to study, who are self-driven learners, it can make them incredibly efficient. That's a human choice. So the way we use AI is incredibly important. The universities, where they come into this is, all education institutions, is that information is no longer the problem. MIT, Harvard, a bunch of other institutions have been publishing their courses for years. You can go and do an MIT engineering course. Like, all of their materials are there. I think you can even do the exams. You can pay a little bit and do the exams. You could potentially get an MIT degree online pretty much for free, and totally free if you don't want to do the exams. They've been doing that for years. Nobody does it. There's one guy called Scott H. Young. I remember it was a big deal because he actually went through the MIT course and he got it done, and he got his degree from MIT. I can name him because he was one dude called Scott H. Young. Nobody else does it. And he was doing it for social media, basically. So just having the information out there, even having tools that AI is not necessarily enough, because not everyone is self-directed. What universities and schools and other educational institutions do is they give us a framework. You have to go and do the work, basically, and you have deadlines. So if you are not a self-driven studier, somebody who wants to learn yourself, these institutions remain incredibly important, because otherwise you're just not going to do it. You're going to slack off, basically. And even for people who are self-driven learners, having the impetus of an exam coming up in X number of weeks is incredibly powerful, because you have deadlines, you have other people around you, a community, you have a teacher that you can go to, you have a structured curriculum. All of that's really powerful for getting through the actual material. The material, the information itself, is secondary to the fact that the university helps you get it done. So I have cohorts, I have courses of information. So I have a cohort starting in a couple of weeks, helping people learn how to go and give workshops. Now, I could just write information about this and publish it, and I've written guides about this. That is not enough for people to act on the information that they're given. They need additional help, and that's fine. That's just a human thing. So cohorts, courses, structured learning help people actually to use, one, to learn the stuff they're meant to learn, and to use it, so get into action. So I think that is what universities and schools and educational institutions are still going to be valuable for. It's for getting people through it and making sure they actually use its stuff. So how long until university is not necessary? I don't think it's going to be unnecessary. It will change 100%. We're going to start using AI tutors, which I think is a wonderful thing, because people are going to have access to that one-to-one tutor. But I think we'll still have some form of university. It won't be, the medieval idea. I went to Oxford personally, which is one of the first or the first university, and it hasn't changed that much, I'll be honest. We're going to have to change some of that. To be fair though, the internet and the dawn of the internet, we should have been changing these things, because rote memorization doesn't make any sense. So I think we will have universities that are just going to be different from what we have right now. And I think that's a good thing. It's extremely exciting. Scroll down. Lovable. Lovable built a few apps using their tech. Yeah, Lovable's great. It's also a bra company in the UK, which is extremely unfortunate. Gary Vee was recently pushing Lovable on one of his videos. Awesome. Yeah. I'd like to make an app, but I believe Gary Vee makes the distribution so too easy. Yeah, so this is a big issue now. Because everybody can build using a tool like Lovable, using Replete, Bolt, one of the vibe coding apps, because everyone can build, that is no longer the barrier to entry. It used to be that if you wanted to create a piece of software, if you were a non-technical founder, you'd have to find a technical founder, which is, so whenever I went to entrepreneurship meetups, etc., most of the people there were like, oh, I've got this great idea, but I just need someone to build it for me. Which is why CTOs and tech people get paid so much, by the way, because they actually put in the work and learn how to build this stuff. That's no longer a barrier. You can build stuff with Lovable. It won't necessarily be the end product, the one that you're going to take to market, but you can build a prototype, you can build an MVP. Anyone can now. What this means is it's exciting because anyone can, but it's also a problem because that means an oversupply. Now that anyone can build anything very quickly, the problem is not building, the problem is distribution. So if you go to an AI tool directory, and there are hundreds of these directories, if you go onto these directories, most of the projects there are dead. AI tool directories are basically graveyards of projects that have launched on Product Hunt and then disappeared because people are not building distribution at the same time. So you have to build distribution. It's becoming more and more important. Greg Eisenberg has talked about this, how the new 80-20 is 80% distribution, 20% product, because you need that distribution to get anything that you build out into the world and to start getting feedback. Because now I could sit down in the next hour and put together an app, and I've got a bunch of ideas and I can put together a prototype, but so can everyone else. So that means you need that distribution. So I'm in a better position because I have an audience of, I think, about 250,000. So I can build something in the next hour, put it out and say, hey, what do you think of this? That's awesome. But it's taken me years to build up that distribution. What people need to be doing right now is, if they want to be able to launch like that, is you need to start building distribution ASAP. There's a guy called YonnyMan.mp4, or Yonny can do it, I think. And I mention him a bunch. You've probably heard his name. Yonny will do it. So he's done this in such a clever way. He started a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, posting in public about building. And he used a little camera like this one. I know he used this one. He used the Osmo Pocket specifically, just to record a video every day. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'm going to build this. Or maybe I've got some ideas, like just a little diary, basically. He's done it for 500 plus days now. And he used that to build up an audience and talk to the audience about what he's thinking about building, asking them what would be useful, etc. And then around day 300, or I don't know, about a year into it, he actually built. And he built something called Brain Rot, an app, and he launched. And because he already had an audience of 100,000 people who were following his build in public journey, it did really well. It went to #1 in Product Hunt in his category, and it started ranking on the App Store as well, because he built distribution first and product second. Really smart, and anyone can do that. You just need a camera. You can do it on your phone. I have this little Osmo thing. I've spent far too much money on adverts, on computer gear and cameras, but you don't need any of that. If you've got a phone, you can start to record your journey and build, and you need that distribution locked in because, yeah, for someone like Gary Vee, obviously he can build and launch something with Lovable, but he has millions of people that he can talk to. Fantastic. If you don't have that distribution in place, then you will launch to crickets, and that is very demotivating, very demoralizing, and that's why it's probably the most important thing right now, and it's going to get more important as well. Oh, George, are you coming to see Lovable as well? From the, I just saw that you, Chief Growth Officer, have you come from Rwanda to come and see Lovable? That's awesome. Tell me if you're still in chat, and I'm sure I'll see you in the next few days. Very cool. The context of that, George, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but the context of that is Lovable did a competition called Lovable Shipped. I need to be very careful saying that, but Lovable Shipped, PPED, where it was not a boot camp. It was a program where you would build with Lovable, and at the end, a few people would be flown over to Sweden to come and meet the team, and there's like an award ceremony. I think I should know, I'm going to it in a few days. So I did not build with Shipped, but what I did was at the beginning of Shipped, because it was so exciting, I gave out something called a buddy code. It's like here's a way to get into the competition. It was totally free, so I just gave it away to make sure lots of people knew about it and could participate. And I somehow gave away the most of these codes, and as a result, they're flying me out to the award ceremony, the gift. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. I should find out. I hope Brenton's not watching this, the Lovable guy. But yeah, tell me if you are here for that, George. I'm not sure if you're still in the live, but if so, I'll see you in a few days. Do you feel you use anything today from your degree? I'm not sure if that's directed at me or generally. Is it generally a good question? Yeah, so my degree is history, modern history technically, from Oxford. So I studied medieval British European history, the Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, the Chinese, modern Chinese history from the Qing dynasty onwards. I can't remember the other bits and pieces, but history basically. And yeah, it's been really useful, not because of the information, it's all gone, I've forgotten most of it, but because of the practice and the skills that I learned. So at Oxford in particular, you write a lot. You get there the first day and they're like, okay, here's a list of books, go and read them all, for 10 books, and next week come back with a 3,000 word essay. Shit, because we'd done that like once before in sixth form. I don't know what that would be outside of the UK, but when you're 17, 18 or so, I'd done like one essay of that length. But the first week they're like, okay, go away and come back with that essay in a week. It's like, oh. And then you did that basically every week, sometimes multiple essays per week, every single week for 3 years, basically. That skill of going away, analyzing a huge amount of information, then synthesizing it into something new has been incredibly valuable, because that practice of pulling information from sources, working out what's useful, what's not, and then constructing into an argument, that is something that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. The actual content of those arguments, the content of that information doesn't really matter. It's the skill of analysis and synthesis that's been really useful. And depending on what your degree is, you'll have different skills which you picked up from that. It might be in analytics, it might be mathematics. There's going to be something that you take from your degree which is really useful in life. For me, it's writing and research. Thanks for your honesty. RE degree, not religious education. I feel similarly, but with 16-year-old son not feeling it. Yeah. So he's a nephew, and he's 17, 18? And that question's come up, and his dad's asked me, like, should he go to uni? And it's tricky. At least in the UK, uni is expensive, but it's not bankruptingly expensive like in America, where college is. Just obviously, so I did an MBA in America, and I think it was about $50,000 a year. I think it was 50. Yeah, so it was 2 years, so it was about $100,000. A lot of money, and that's pretty normal. So that's on the higher end because it's an MBA and it was in New York. But for people to leave school with hundreds of thousands in debt is normal in America, which is just, just being saddled with that seems horrendous. In the UK, at least, it's a bit less. And if you're in Europe, it's even less, I think, or free in some places, which is fantastic. So I think there's a cost factor there. That said, if I was 16, 17, 18, I don't necessarily know what I'd do with my life. And I think that university is a good way to start to work that out. You're not going to necessarily come out with answers, but also a time to kind of get out of the family home and to mature, theoretically. Some people don't. But to be independent and to be on your own. So I think it's quite useful as a transition in that way. The actual subject that's learnt, I think, is not necessarily that important, although there are some, obviously, if you're going into the professions, like if you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer, for example, you need to start that track now. But it's a difficult question, because I don't think university is necessarily for everyone. Well, it definitely isn't for everyone, but I think we've all been programmed and told that's what you do. That is the normal progression, and then you get married, and then you have a kid, and you get a mortgage, and I think that's unhealthy. But to push back against it, you also need to know what you're going to do. So just pushing back against it for the sake of it and then flailing around without purpose, without direction, I don't think is any better. At least with the standard traditional path, there is a progression. And if you decide at some point, okay, stop the train, I want to get off, I want to do something else, that's fine. But if you do that too early, when you're 16, 17, and you don't really know what you want to do, then the risk there is that you just spend years floating around. But each to their own. I'm not going to pass any judgment on anybody. But I understand as a parent, if you've got a 16-year-old kid right now and you're looking at AI and you're looking at what it's going to do to jobs and education, it's tricky. I don't know the solution. I'd love to know what you're thinking about it specifically. I don't have a 16-year-old kid, so I can't really talk on it. Tamara says, how do I learn AI though? I really want to learn any courses suggested. So it depends on what level of AI you want to get to. If you just want to use AI, just use AI. Literally, just start using it on a daily basis and you will find more sophisticated ways to use it as you begin to do. You'll start to use projects, you'll start to set up scheduled tasks, etc. If you want to build with AI, then a couple of ways. You can either use vibe coding tools, which make it a lot easier. You can build software with something like Lovable. It's a good place to start. We were just talking about it a moment ago. And that's a very nice, easy on-ramp to building using artificial intelligence. If you want to build this, now this is difficult. So we use Lovable AI to build applications, but you can also build AI applications, which is basically an application, a piece of software, which also connects to AI. For that, you need to learn about the API, the application protocol interface, which sounds complicated, but it's basically a password, and you're going to connect it to your piece of software, and that allows your piece of software to pipe information back and forward. But that's what you're going to be learning about. If you want to go a step beyond and learn how AI works, that is a different ball game. So that means getting into the mathematics of it. It's learning about machine learning, it's learning the algorithms, etc. Very doable. You can absolutely do that. You might not need to though. So it's really a question of, when you talk about learning AI, where do you want to go? What do you want to do with it? If you want to build AI models, then yes, you need to go down the route of, you need to know the mathematics, you need to get into machine learning, and then you're going to be building large language models or similar from the ground up. That will probably require going to school, but you can self-learn it. If you just want to build software using AI or that connects to AI, then you don't need to go to university. You don't need to have a solid course of study. YouTube's probably going to be the best for you. And if you just want to start using AI on a daily basis, just start playing around with it. So it depends. There are different levels depending on your goals with artificial intelligence. I'd say if you haven't used it at all, start with just using it in your daily life. Then you can expand up to, oh, okay, I can build stuff with this. That's cool. And you can try out vibe coding. And then if you really get into it and you want to get deep into the weeds, then you can look at machine learning and how artificial intelligences work. In terms of resources, deeplearning.ai, not my website, but deeplearning.ai is really good. Huge range of courses there, starting from beginner ones like generative AI for everyone and AI for everyone, I think it's called. Very basic level, but they start to talk about how AI works. There's also the Andrej Karpathy videos, fantastic, really useful for learning how large language models work. Again, you don't necessarily need to know that in order to use AI, but it's interesting. So I'd start with those things. And then follow people like Nate B. Jones on TikTok and Ethan Mollick on Twitter and LinkedIn. Sorry, X. I should probably call it X. I'm going to hop over to some news because I haven't actually done any. Just been blabbing. So this is an interesting one and a good one I'm relieved about. Apple are exploring using Google Gemini AI to power revamped Siri. So Apple have basically dropped the ball, and lots of Apple apologists, and I'm one of them. I love Apple. I'm on a Apple MacBook Pro. I've got an Apple iPhone here. It's probably a bunch. Oh, there's an Apple iPad over there. Like, fully Apple pilled. A lot of people who are pro Apple have been saying, "Oh no, it's all right. Apple are just waiting until the right moment. This is what they do. This is pure Apple. They will wait until The moment is right for them to strike, and then they'll take over with their artificial intelligence. No. I don't think that's happening. I think they've dropped the ball hard. And we've got things like the new Google Pixel came out last week, and I'm quite jealous of it. Like, it actually has genuinely useful looking AI features in it. And the iPhone, what do they add? They added those terrible make your own emoji things. Like, what are you doing? And they could, if they had upgraded Siri and given Siri the power of generative AI, they could have made it really useful, because Siri is already something that people have access to. There are billions of people who have iPhones out there, so you could have automatically put AI into the hands of a substantial chunk of people on Earth. They have not managed to do. So it looks like, here we go, Apple Incorporated is in early discussions about using Google Gemini to power a revamped version of the Siri voice assistant, marking a key potential step towards outsourcing more of its artificial intelligence technology. That's a very nice way to put it. Outsourcing. It's, oh God, we're in trouble. Help. The iPhone maker recently approached Alphabet Incorporated Google to explore building a custom AI model that would serve as a foundation for the new Siri next year. According to people familiar with that matter, Google has started training a model that could run on Apple's servers, said the people, who asked not to be identified. The work is part of an effort to catch up in generative AI, a field where the company arrived late and then struggled to gain traction. That is putting it mildly. Earlier this year, Apple also explored partners with Anthropic and OpenAI, weighing whether Claude or ChatGPT could serve as Siri's new brain. So yeah, that was one of the early partnerships. I think that was March last year. They struck up a partnership with OpenAI, one that Elon Musk is very annoyed about right now, because ChatGPT keeps appearing as a featured application in the Apple ecosystem, and Grok does not, and he's furious about it. Apple is still several weeks away from making a decision on whether to continue using internal models for Siri. What internal model? It's so bad. Or move to a partner. And it's yet to be determined who that partner may be. Spokesman for Apple and Google declined to comment. So bizarrely, Siri's about 13 or 14 years old. It was one of our early AI assistants. It doesn't use generative AI, it uses natural language processing, but it's connected, it's like parallel. So it would have been such an easy track to hop to just add some basic generative AI ability into it. But for the last couple of years, they have not, and they've dropped the ball entirely. They added the ability for you to ask Siri to use ChatGPT. By the time you'd done all of that, it was just easier to go to ChatGPT, especially because Siri would mangle your request. I still struggle to set a timer with Siri sometimes. It's an old, obsolete technology built into state-of-the-art hardware devices. And it's a shame, because they had the ability to basically take the market by putting it into the hands of everyday normal people, and they have flubbed it entirely. So it looks like they're looking at Google as well. So discussions with Google, Anthropic and OpenAI. So basically everyone apart from Elon Musk and XAI makes sense. And hopefully we'll have a new powered Siri in the next year or so. Yeah, even those timelines, they're looking at 2026 for the new Siri. Everything's just too slow. The timelines for deployments and releases in the world of AI are now months. If something's going to take years, it's going to be behind by the time it's released. And I think Apple they're moving too slowly for this. So I worry about them in the future. I really do. Scrolling some questions. Oh yeah, application program interface. I said application protocol interface, didn't I? Yeah, API is not protocol interface, excuse me. Cool. So what are the other pieces of news? I'm going to pull up, this is a bit unusual, but I'm going to pull up a Reddit article I found really useful. So this is inspired by an article that just published on BBC about how to stop AI agents going rogue. And it's actually not a bad article describing what an agent is. So a lot of people are using the term agent indiscriminately. Agent has become the new marketing term. It's just something you add on. Last year, you just added the word AI. Now you add the word agent or agentic, basically. But a lot of what people shill as agents are not agents. They're just AI automations, and they don't actually have any agentic behavior. So I thought there was a decent definition of what an agent is here. Remember that we haven't We have lots of definitions. We have too many definitions of this, but we don't have an agreed upon definition. So this is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name because I'm going to get it wrong and I'm going to get in trouble. It looks like a Gaelic or a Celtic name. I'm going to say Donna Casey, CEO of Calypso AI, a US-based security company. He says, an AI agent consists of a few things, and I'm sorry for definitely getting your name wrong. Firstly, the agent has an intent or purpose. Why am I here? What is my job? The second thing, it's got a brain. That's the AI model. The third thing is tools, which could be other systems or databases and a way of communicating with them. I think that is a solid definition. So 3 things again, an intent or purpose. So whenever we create an agent, we give it a goal. This is what you're created for. This is what you're going to do. Why am I here? What's my job? I don't think that's useful language, because that reminds me of that Rick and Morty, the little robot that moves the salt shaker about. And when it realizes that's its life's purpose, it gets depressed. But yes, we need to give an agent a goal. This is what you're working towards. And if you get the goal done, great, kudos, points. If you don't get it done, negative, and then we use it to reinforce it. The second thing, it's got a brain. That's the AI model. So in most cases, it's going to be generative AI. It's going to be a large language model. And then the third thing is tools, which could be other systems or databases or a way of communicating with them. So a limitation of a lot of our AIs is that they don't have access to the rest of the world. So it relies on us as human beings to feed in the information. So as soon as we give an AI access to our computer or our development interface, for example, or development server, or to all of the documentation inside our organization, when we give all of this to an artificial intelligence, it's much better able to get done what it needs to get done, to move towards that goal, because it doesn't have that limitation of requiring the human operator to come in and tell it what to do, what tools to use it with, etc. However, and he goes on to say this, if not given the right guidance, agentic AI will achieve a goal in whatever way it can, and that creates a lot of risk. So the famous example here is the paperclip example, which I think it's from Nick Bostrom's Superintelligence book. But there's also a really good video game called Universal Paperclips, which is this idea of an AI where if you give it the goal, if you give it the purpose of create paperclips, or specifically create as many paperclips as you can, and that's its only goal, the logical thing to do, eventually, this AI will follow that instruction to what we would consider an insane or an obscene limit. It will basically strip mine all the resources from Earth. It will realize that humans are getting in the way of it trying to make paperclips, so it will probably get rid of us, and it will turn us to mush and turn us into paperclips. It will build a Dyson sphere around the sun in order to power its paperclip factories, etc., because it's all aiming at one goal, and it won't let anything, including humans, get in the way of that. So this is one of the ideas of a rogue AI, is that it won't destroy us and kill off humanity because it's malicious. It would do so because it's trying to reach a larger goal that we, the humans, have given it, and it's trying to do that at all costs. So we'd have to specifically put in things like, hey, don't drain the oceans to cool your paperclip factory, or please don't withdraw all our energy off the power, leaving us in the dark in order to power your factories. We'd have to give it all of these strictures and rules as well. And it's really hard to come up with all of them beforehand, to give all of the rules. So we had a form of AI, and it was rules-based, basically. And this was one of the earlier forms of AI. And somebody, I forgot the name of the system, but somebody tried to basically write all of the rules of human knowledge into this system. I'll have to look it up because it's a fascinating piece of history. They're like, if we give it all of the rules of how things work, then we'll be able to create intelligence. So all we need to do is explicitly write all these things down. So there are things like, you've got a mug. If you have a coffee mug, you need to put it on a mat on the table. Cool. But then they had to write explicit rules for absolutely everything. Oh, don't leave your coffee mug on the carpet. Okay, cool, we'll write that in. And as you can imagine, this just expanded, and it was just impossible. These were humans typing in these rules. And they were trying to capture all of the implicit knowledge that we have in our head into explicit rules for a computer. And very quickly they realized that, no, we can't do this. There are so many things that we as humans implicitly know and we don't think about as like rules. They're just things that we do. And trying to capture that is almost impossible. This is one of the issues with agentic or agents, is that they will act in a way that we can't necessarily predict because they're trying to reach a goal. And unless we write down all the guardrails and all of the strictures, they might find a weird way to reach that goal, which we as humans will look at in horror and be like, no, that's entirely wrong. But there's no way for the AI to know that because all it's doing is focusing on its goal. So this is a whole article on the BBC, well worth having a look at. But the reason I wanted to mention it is I saw this useful post over on Reddit. And often there's a lot of noise over on Reddit, especially after the GPT-5 release. It was chaos. But there's a guy here basically put together a step-by-step roadmap for if you want to build agents. And he says, everyone keeps asking for a step-by-step roadmap. They want a list of frameworks and courses. That's a trap. I've been building these systems for years, and the only path that works is learning the concepts in the right order. This isn't about specific tools, it's about the mental models. And then he goes ahead and he lays out 4-5 different phases. So I'm just going to go through them because I thought this was really useful. So the first one, phase 0, is the toy. Stop reading tutorials. Seriously, pick one PDF, your resume, a Wikipedia article, anything, and build a chatbot that can answer questions about it. Use LangChain or Llama Index. Don't worry about the UI. Don't worry if it's slow. The only goal is to understand how a prompt, a context window, and an LLM actually fit together. You need to feel the limitations of basic RAG, retrieval augmented generation, before you can appreciate anything else. So he says, stop reading, stop studying, just go and build a little fun toy project. It's not going to be useful, probably won't work, but that allows you to get to grips with how these things fit together. I think this is really useful for anything that you're learning. You need to do something. So I help teach people about entrepreneurship. And one of the things I tell them is just stop reading, stop studying, just go and start something. And it's going to be rubbish and it's not going to work and you're not going to make any money. And that's fine because you're going to start learning from that process. Phase 1. So phase 0 is the toy. Phase 1 is the tool user. Now, give your bot a single tool, one tool, a calculator, a weather API, anything. This is where you move from a search bot to an actual agent. The real challenge isn't calling the API, it's fighting with prompt engineering to make the agent reliably understand when to use the tool versus just making up an answer. So you've built a very basic chatbot here, and now you're connecting it to some kind of external tool. So just one tool, and you're making sure that it knows how to use that tool and it doesn't get it wrong, which it will most of the time. Phase 2, the orchestrator. One agent can't do anything very well. Sorry, one agent can't do everything. Now build a system of specialized agents. So you're going to have multiple agents connected to this large language model in the middle. An orchestrator agent's only job is to receive a request and route it to the correct specialist, like a billing agent, a support agent, etc. This is where your simple script becomes a real system and you're forced to think about state management and how agents communicate. So this is building an ecosystem of different agents that are all communicating, and the task is being sent to the right one, and then probably information from one being sent to others, and you have an orchestrator in the middle which is making sure it's going in the right direction. So it starts to look like building a business at this point, or building a team of people, and you need to be thinking in that kind of systems logic in order to get it working. Phase 3, the memory. An agent without memory is just a function call. It can't have a real conversation. Now, give your agents memory. Start with simple conversation history, then move to a vector database for long-term recall. So it's going to remember everything that you've done with it before. The hard part isn't storing the memory, it's retrieving only the relevant parts without cluttering the context window. So context window, we've talked about this before, is basically the memory of a large language model. It is all of the input and output information fall within this context window. And if you run out of context window, then the AI is going to start making things up. It will start to hallucinate to fill in the gaps. It's very easy to store everything. Let's say we're using our AI agent and we're storing absolutely everything into a vector database. Cool, that's great, but that's not very useful. We just have a big splurge, a data dump of information. We need to be able to provide the correct context to the agent at the right time. That's the difficult part. And then phase 4, the guardrails. This is where most projects fail in the real world. An agent can do anything Oh, an agent that can do anything is an agent that can do anything wrong. Now you need to learn how to say no. Build hard rules, output validation, and content filters. This is where you learn about red teaming, evaluation frameworks, and the art of making an agent say, I don't know, instead of lying, which is a hard job in artificial intelligence. So this is when you are preparing your agent to go to build it into a piece of software, for example, because if it's internal for you and it's making mistakes, it's not the end of the world. You can probably fix them manually, but the whole point of an agent, it is autonomous. You should be able to step back, but you can still fix things if it's just private. If you are releasing it as a piece of software or you're building it for a client, you can't have it going wrong, because again, an agentic system, when left to its own devices, can wreak absolute havoc, because we're connecting it into parts of our business or parts of our organization that, if it changes, if it messes around with them, could be devastating. And then phase X, the final phase, the real world. Everything above is a sandbox. The real world work starts now. You deploy, you learn about latency, monitoring, and observability. You build feedback loops so that agent learns from its mistakes. You deal with data privacy, compliance, and user trust. This phase never ends. You just get better at this loop. That's it. That's the path. Stop chasing the perfect stack and start solving these problems in order. The real skill is in the transition between these phases. So again, very briefly, phase 0 is the toy. Just mess around with building a basic system. You just need to get started, get your hands dirty. Don't keep reading about these things, but start to build. Use LangChain, it's fine. Phase 1, the tool user. So you're going to connect your chatbot to one tool, make sure that it works. Phase 2, you're going to add different tools and an orchestrator, part of the AI that's going to orchestrate the correct tools. Phase 3 is adding a memory, not just a large vector database where you dump all the conversations, but an ability to recall the correct things at the right time. That's the hard part. Phase 4 is the guardrails, starting to prepare it for the limelight for public release for your client or your customer, and red teaming it, basically trying to break it in order to find how it's going to go wrong in the real world, and then fixing those problems before they occur, and then deploying it into the real world, building feedback systems, and continuing to make it better and better. So I thought this was a really useful framework. This is not mine. This is from Reddit. He does not have enough upvotes. He really should. But this is a much better answer than how should I build, like what tool should I use? Should I use NA10? Yeah, sure. Should I use, you can use whatever tool you want. That doesn't really matter. This is what's important, is what you're going to build for, what problem are you going to solve, and then building step by step through these phases. That's more important than what tool you use, because you can use multiple tools and get this same work done. Okay, I'm going to finish up some last questions and then head off and explore Stockholm. Oh, thank you, High Fruit. That looks fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Very cool. Okay, no questions. So awesome. All of these recordings are available on YouTube. They're over on YouTube/I am Kyle Balmer. So the same username as on the other social media sites. We chop and change all of these videos, make them nice and accessible for you. And there is also a daily written newsletter which goes through the news segments in particular and gives you links to the specific video as well. So make sure you're subscribed to both of those. I will be back tomorrow because this setup seems to work. For those of you who missed it, I'm in Stockholm right now. I'm visiting Lovable, the AI company, in a few days. But for today, I'm going to go and explore Stockholm, which I can see out my window. And yeah, looking forward to exploring. But I will be back tomorrow around 10 a.m. or a bit earlier London time for another news update. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you tomorrow.